Jeremy Clarkson took on Keir Starmer in a debate that pushed the boundaries of political discourse. With his signature wit and sharp commentary, Clarkson didn't hold back, delivering a series of pointed critiques that left Starmer momentarily at a loss for words. As tensions rose, it became clear that this wasn't just another political exchange. It was a clash of personalities that captivated audiences everywhere. What unfolded next was nothing short of a spectacle, as Clarkson's bravado challenged Starmer's composure in ways few expected.
In a savage way. He actually hit me so pathetically weakly that he gouged my temple. I have a scar here when I get a tan, and it's from his signet ring I think he had on, which gouged me here. But the good news was that in hitting my head, he broke his little finger and disfigured it so badly, it's never fully recovered. So we kind of both have our little war wounds. Look, Jeremy Clarkson and I had 10 years of war, and it was particularly annoying that my kids all loved Top Gear. And then eventually he texted me about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe later, it was last summer actually, and it was brilliantly British. It was like at 1 a.m, Morgan, Clarkson here, we should end this. Drink? And then I found out that we shared the same pub without realising it. I said, Scarsdale, 7 p.m, Monday. And he arrived on a push bike looking like he was about to die. And I arrived on foot, and I could see the locals going, holy fuck.
In a recent televised exchange, Jeremy Clarkson, known for his provocative style, engaged Keir Starmer in a heated discussion that quickly escalated. Clarkson's sharp wit and biting humour caught Starmer off guard, leading to moments of awkward silence as the Labour leader struggled to respond. The confrontation showcased Clarkson's knack for turning serious debates into theatrical spectacles, leaving audiences both amused and astonished by the way he managed to humiliate Starmer with just a few well-timed remarks. Social media exploded with reactions, highlighting how Clarkson's charismatic presence dominated the conversation, leaving Starmer reeling. As the exchange unfolded, Clarkson wasted no time launching into pointed critiques of Starmer's policies and leadership style.
Fascinating, isn't it, Bev? This array of front pages across the media, all aligned from left to right. The Guardian, the Daily Mail, even towing the line. Interesting. The Sun front page, actually, if we can get it up, nailed and jailed. Naming and shaming some of the thugs who were involved in rioting this week. One got a 3-year jail term for punching a cop during violence in Southport. Excellent, swift justice within a day or two, banged up. The question begs then, why are those people caught on CCTV at Manchester Airport some weeks ago? Do you remember that incident? Smashing police officers in the face, breaking a young officer's nose into pieces. Why are they still on bail doing press conferences, playing the victim, saying that they're going to sue the hell out of Greater Manchester Police? If we can deal with people this quickly, white, working class, far-right thugs in jail for 3 years within days, why can't that be sorted out?
With his trademark bravado, he questioned Starmer's ability to connect with the public, using clever anecdotes that painted the Labour leader as out of touch. The studio audience reacted with laughter and gasps, amplifying the awkwardness for Starmer, who attempted to regain his footing. Starmer, visibly taken aback, struggled to counter Clarkson's barbs, leading to a series of stumbles in his responses. Each time he tried to pivot the conversation back to policy, Clarkson deftly redirected it, making it clear that he was more interested in theatrics than serious debate. Viewers were captivated as Clarkson's relentless humor transformed the political discourse into a lively, albeit uncomfortable, spectacle. Social media was abuzz with clips of the exchange, with many praising Clarkson for his boldness, while others criticized him for overshadowing substantive political discussion. Ultimately, the encounter served as a stark reminder of how charisma and performance can dominate the political arena.
Being reported that you're looking at tighter restrictions on smoking outdoors, pub gardens, outdoor restaurants, outside hospitals and so on. Is that something that you are considering?
My starting point on this is to remind everyone that over 80,000 people lose their lives every year because of smoking. That's a preventable death. It's a huge burden on the NHS, and of course it's a burden on the taxpayer. So yes, we are going to take decisions in this space. More details will be revealed, but this is a preventable series of deaths, and we've got to take the action to reduce the burden on the NHS and reduce the burden on the taxpayer.
You said when you became Prime Minister you wanted politics to tread more lightly on people's lives. This is the opposite, isn't it?
Look, I think it's important to get the balance right, but everybody watching this who uses the NHS will know that it's on its knees. We have to relieve the burden, and that's why I spoke before the election about moving to a preventative model when it comes to health. I want the NHS back on its feet, but I also want it fit for the next, 75 years, just as we've had a brilliant 75 years already. And that means taking action in relation to preventable deaths, and these are 80,000 a year preventable deaths.
Leaving Starmer with a lot to think about in the wake of Clarkson's unforgettable verbal assault. As the tension mounted, Clarkson seized every opportunity to push Starmer further into a corner. He delivered punchlines that not only drew laughter from the audience, but also underscored his criticisms, often referencing Starmer's previous missteps and party challenges. With each quip, the Labour leader's composure wavered, illustrating the stark difference between Clarkson's fearless persona and Starmer's more measured approach. Despite attempts to refocus the conversation on key issues like the economy and public services, Clarkson continually brought it back to personal jibes, calling into question Starmer's leadership skills with anecdotes that resonated with viewers. "How do you expect to lead the country when you can't even defend your own position?" Clarkson quipped, prompting audible reactions from the crowd. The aftermath of the encounter sparked debates across social media and news outlets, with pundits analysing the implications for Starmer's leadership and the Labour Party's strategy moving forward. Many speculated on whether this public humiliation would affect Starmer's standing among supporters, or if he could rebound from the experience with renewed vigour.
But it's a legal decision, not a policy decision. And the Prime Minister knows the framework, and they shout, they issued the guidance, they know what the test is, that test has been assessed, we've come to a conclusion, and we've put that before the House to consider.
Prime Minister!
Well, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the Prime Minister's answer, but he'll know that decisions like this also have important and broader geopolitical implications.
I made it very clear on a number of occasions that those involved will feel the full force of the law. So we coordinated, we went through some of the numbers. Over 400 people now have been arrested, 100 have been charged, some in relation to online activity, and a number of them are already in court. And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message.
In a fiery exchange, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have launched a scathing attack on Keir Starmer, leaving no stone unturned in their critique of the Labour leader.
So the Prime Minister tonight reacting to what has happened over the course of the last 48 hours. His conclusion, very simple, it's all the far right, as if they're causing all of the problems. No, the far right are a reaction to fear, to discomfort, to unease that is out there shared by tens of millions of people. Let me be clear. I don't support street violence. I don't support thuggery in any way at all. But I'm worried, not just about the events in South.
As political tensions rise in the UK, Farage and Murray didn't hold back, delivering sharp remarks that have sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Here's what they had to say and how it could impact Starmer's leadership. In a fiery exchange, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have launched a scathing attack on Keir Starmer, leaving no stone unturned in their critique of the Labour leader.
Folks, just think about it. Are you proud of what your forebears did? And yes, I know the Second World War generation are dying out, so I understand why there might be slightly less pride in our immediate past. You know, if your father or your mother was involved in the war, if your family lost people in either one of the wars, I do understand for a younger generation that is further away.
As political tensions rise in the UK, Farage and Murray didn't hold back, delivering sharp remarks that have sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Here's what they had to say, and how it could impact Starmer's leadership. Farage didn't hold back in questioning Starmer's authenticity, suggesting that his political career has been defined by an effort to please everyone rather than taking bold, decisive action.
Starmer, greatest threat, this is the Telegraph, greatest threat to free speech in British history. And you have to believe that he is, because he's saying he's got a whole crew of people looking at Twitter. He's got a whole crew of people looking at the media, at all the different things, and making sure we say the right things, that we don't incite violence. I mean, the guy is he's bad. He's an absolutely bad.
What are some of the ways he's going to restrict free speech?
He's going to say you can't say anything.
He accused Starmer of being too aligned with the establishment, failing to represent the interests of those who feel left behind by the political class. According to Farage, this lack of connection with the public will be Starmer's downfall, especially as issues like immigration and sovereignty continue to dominate political discourse. Murray, meanwhile, doubled down on the cultural front.
Is speaking to the fact that there was an information vacuum in the wake of the killings of those girls, absolutely horrific killings. That obviously, across the nation, everybody was furious. Everybody wanted answers. We still don't know what the motive was. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to come out during the trial process at some point. And we know for a fact that if it had been a white guy had stabbed, gone into a mosque or something like that, then immediately.
He criticized Starmer for what he called his overly woke agenda, stating that the Labour leader has focused too much on identity politics rather than addressing more pressing concerns like crime, healthcare, and the economy. Murray pointed out that while Starmer tries to navigate the demands of progressive activists, he risks alienating more moderate or conservative voters who are tired of political correctness.
About the person that's been arrested, there's a legal process, legal precedent set about not wishing to ruin the trial. That's why the information doesn't come out. And especially when the police would have known that the person they got was 17, you don't give information about the person if they're underage. Now it turns out it was like 3 days underage by the time you got to see a judge, which makes sense actually naming him. But I mean, none of that. You can have the debate about how our system works, but at the moment, our system works to preserve information to get a good conviction in trial.
Dominating national conversations. Farage didn't hold back in questioning Starmer's authenticity, suggesting that his political career has been defined by an effort to please everyone rather than taking bold, decisive action. He accused Starmer of being too aligned with the establishment, failing to represent the interests of those who feel left behind by the political class. According to Farage, this lack of connection with the public will be Starmer's downfall.
Labor from the top down over the recent years have embraced just about every neo-Marxist folly, from taking a knee for BLM, remember that, to pushing the most extremes of trans activism. But Keir Starmer has suddenly discovered the startling news that men have a penis and women have a vagina. It is a departure from what he has said in the recent past. Indeed, he is performing quite a few backflips in this area. Let's have a look.
Especially as issues like immigration and sovereignty continue to dominate political discourse. Murray, meanwhile, doubled down on the cultural front. He criticised Starmer for what he called his overly woke agenda, stating that the Labour leader has focused too much on identity politics rather than addressing more pressing concerns like crime, healthcare, and the economy. Murray pointed out that while Starmer tries to navigate the demands of progressive activists, he risks alienating more moderate or conservative voters who are tired of political correctness dominating national conversations.
It's also quite alarming just for any man to get into his 60s and discover that men have penises and women don't. Makes you wonder what he's done with his life. But no, of course, this is all just this. I mean, it's so pathetic watching him wriggle like that. He failed to stand up for his very brave female MP, Rosie Duffield. when she simply stated biological fact. He spent a long time doing exactly what we saw him do in one of those interviews, which is...
As Farage and Murray's criticisms reverberate across the political spectrum, the spotlight is now on Keir Starmer to respond. With increasing pressure from both the right and within his own party, his leadership faces a critical test in the months ahead. Whether he can redefine his strategy and present himself as a decisive and effective leader may determine not only his political future, but the future of the Labour Party itself.
And there is no law of war that says you're allowed to start a war and then complain when you lose it. And if maybe cares about the Palestinian casualties, as I'm sure he does, then tell your bosses in Qatar to tell their friends in Gaza to stop the war and give back the hostages.
As the political landscape grows more divided, the criticisms from Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray add to the mounting pressure on Keir Starmer. With the next election looming, Starmer faces an uphill battle to prove himself as a leader capable of uniting both his party and the country. Whether he can withstand these attacks and deliver a clear, compelling vision for the future remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the stakes have never been higher for the Labour leader. In breaking news, Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray have just made a major announcement that's turning heads across the political landscape. Known for their outspoken views and strong stances on national and international issues, the duo's latest statement is poised to have significant implications. As speculation grows, everyone's eager to find out what this could mean for the future of British and global politics. Stay tuned as we dive into the details of their bold new move.
Who is leader of the House, has set up a new committee, a new modernisation committee. When you hear that word, you should always have a slight shiver down the spine. And she herself, unusually, is going to chair this committee. It has 14 members, 9 of them are Labour. And I tell you what they're really going for. They're talking about second jobs, but in particular, what they're talking about is broadcasting. And it says the committee will consider.
Nigel Farage and Douglas Murray are two prominent figures known for their outspoken views on national identity, immigration, and political correctness. While they come from different backgrounds, Farage as a politician and Murray as an author and commentator, their views often intersect, particularly on issues related to Western values and societal changes in the UK and beyond. We'll explore their key moments, statements, and the impact they've had on public discourse. Nigel Farage first rose to prominence as the leader of the UK Independence Party, UKIP, where he championed the cause of Brexit.
Now, we don't on this programme, we don't on this channel blow our own trumpet or boast. No, 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 you can go to a very loudmouth presenter on another news channel to get that sort of thing. But yesterday was the first day since GB News was launched that we did across the day.
Farage's relentless campaigning was instrumental in pushing the UK towards the historic 2016 referendum. His message was clear. The UK needed to regain control of its borders and laws, and only by leaving the European Union could it truly be sovereign.
What advantages, if any, outside paid engagements such as media appearances, journalism and speeches furnish to the public versus potential conflicts of interest? Well, folks, I want to tell you this. I don't see any conflict of interest between being an MP and coming here 3 evenings a week for an hour. And by the way, if there are crucial votes, I just won't be here. I don't see any conflicts of interest whatsoever. In fact, I might make an argument that's slightly different, that I'm here with a panel of people. Some agree with me, some disagree with me. We have open debate. I'd like to think that through programmes like this, what we actually do is take what's really happening in politics and bring it to a bigger audience. So I think it's complementary. So all I can say to Lucy Powell.
Farage's rhetoric struck a chord with many Britons who felt disconnected from the decisions being made in Brussels. He became the face of the Leave campaign, often appearing in debates and media interviews where his blunt, no-nonsense style contrasted sharply with the more polished delivery of many of his political opponents. During this time, Douglas Murray was making waves with his incisive critiques of European immigration policies and the challenges of multiculturalism.
Get more viewers and more viewing hours than our rivals at the BBC, Sky or Talk TV.
His book, The Strange Death of Europe, published in 2017, argued that Europe was committing cultural suicide by allowing mass immigration without demanding assimilation. Murray contended that this approach was eroding the foundational values that had shaped European civilization. His arguments resonated with many who were concerned about the rapid demographic and cultural changes taking place across the continent.
News channel, we are making progress here at GB News. I think part of the reason is we do have, as we've done tonight, on the whole issue of what Sunak has said, these reversals on net zero, we make sure that all sides of the argument get represented. And they are debated with passion. There's no question about that. But I think we treat you.
The convergence of Farage and Murray's views became particularly evident in the aftermath of the Brexit vote. While Farage focused on the political and economic implications of leaving the EU, Murray delved deeper into the cultural and societal impacts. Both men criticized what they saw as the political establishment's failure to address the concerns of ordinary people. They argued that issues like immigration and national identity were being dismissed as taboo topics, leaving a vacuum that populist movements across Europe were quick to fill. In 2019, Farage launched the Brexit Party, which aimed to ensure that the UK would leave the EU without any further delays or compromises.
You can absolutely smell it in Broadcasting House. There's a straightforward editorial line on the Israel issue, which is that the BBC believes that Israel always is in the wrong and can do no right. And its coverage is grossly unfair. It has been for years. And I think this is something that should be addressed. I mean, you see it in headline after headline, day after day. The BBC will report things from effectively the angle of Hamas. It happened recently with the issue of the four hostages who were killed in captivity. The way in which the BBC reported this.
The party's rapid rise in popularity was a testament to Farage's enduring appeal among voters who felt betrayed by the political class.
There was a report some years ago into the BBC's anti-Israel bias inside the BBC, and the report was never released. And I suspect, as many other people do, that it's because it came to the same conclusions that this report has come to.
During this period, Murray continued to speak out against what he saw as the erosion of free speech and the growing influence of identity politics. In his public appearances and writings, he warned that the West was losing its sense of purpose and direction, and that this malaise was being exploited by those who sought to undermine its values.
It was as if the Israelis had killed the Israeli hostages. It was as if the Israeli Prime Minister had killed the Israeli hostages. The whole onus of the coverage was as if there was an Israeli mistake or error or Israeli intransigence that had caused it. And the coverage did not acknowledge the fact that in most civilized media entities as well as societies, it is deemed to be wrong to break into somebody else's country, break into their house, kill their citizens and kidnap them.
One of the most striking moments that brought Farage and Murray's perspectives into the spotlight was the controversy surrounding the question of national identity and the role of history.
So it's been a day of some celebration. Just to give you some idea, our breakfast show yesterday had double the watch time of Sky News and 3 times the share of the BBC News Channel. And this particular show last night had 3 times the average number of viewers as Sky News and almost double the average number of people watching the BBC.
Farage, known for his patriotism, often spoke about the importance of preserving British traditions and heritage. He criticised efforts to rewrite or diminish Britain's history, particularly in relation to the British Empire. Murray, meanwhile, took a broader view, arguing that Western civilization as a whole was being unfairly maligned by those who wished to paint it solely as a force for oppression and injustice.
It always has done. I'm slightly surprised that they've been found to have only 1,500 breaches of their own guidelines in recent months. I'd have put the figure rather higher than that.
Their views came under heavy criticism from progressive commentators who accused them of promoting a narrow exclusionary vision of national identity. Farage was often labelled as a nationalist, while Murray was accused of being a provocateur. Both men, however, rejected these labels. Farage argued that wanting to control immigration and protect British sovereignty did not make him anti-immigrant, and Murray insisted that his critiques were aimed at defending liberal values, such as freedom of speech and equality before the law, which he believed were under threat from the rise of identity politics. A pivotal moment in their public discourse came during the debates around Brexit and its aftermath.
This really affects Lee Anderson and myself. And if you're coming after us and think you can bully us, you've picked on the wrong people. I'm not going anywhere. If you want to martyr me, please have a go.
Farage, having achieved his long-sought goal of taking the UK out of the EU, shifted his focus to what he saw as the next major battle, ensuring that the UK did not compromise its newfound sovereignty. He warned against what he termed a Brexit betrayal and campaigned for a clean break from the EU's regulations and structures. In a surprising and bold move, three of the most influential voices from different corners of British society have come together in an unexpected alliance. Nigel Farage, the political firebrand, Douglas Murray, the sharp-witted intellectual, and Rowan Atkinson, the legendary comedian. This all-new partnership has left many speculating about what such a unique collaboration could mean. With Farage's controversial political views, Murray's fierce commentary on cultural issues, and Atkinson's satirical brilliance, their combined influence has the potential to reshape conversations across politics, media, and public discourse in ways no one could have predicted. This partnership truly changes everything.
So this is ridiculous. This has nothing to do with the original aim of the gay rights movement, which was just to get to equality and stop. These people find it really hard to stop.
And I mean, J.K. Rowling, who hardly is a political controversialist, and yet has sort of faced quite a degree of hatred over this.
The same thing. All of these things are interconnected. I say in the chapter, gay is a minority issue. Relations between men and women is a majority issue. Certainly used to be. And relations between men and women cannot be as divisive as they've been made in recent years. I say there, though, you see, what we've got this problem with is what happens when the feminists have won.
You know, I doubt that he will reappear, but you never know. You must never.
The people have spoken.
Yeah, quite.
Nigel Farage has long been known as one of the most outspoken political figures in the United Kingdom. Rising to prominence as the leader of the UK Independence Party, UKIP, Farage was instrumental in leading the charge for Brexit, a seismic political shift that redefined Britain's relationship with the European Union and reverberated across global politics.
Perhaps been a fairer country in terms of race than parts of the USA. I mean, what I'm saying is, you know, I mean, look, I can't stand the tearing down of statues, mob rule. And we saw that extraordinary picture the other day of a woman innocently sitting outside a restaurant, being surrounded by a mob. And it was compared to 1933 in Germany, and people being made to raise their right arm in support of the Führer. I mean, so we've seen all of that. But does the Black Lives Matter movement in America, does it need to exist in some form?
So, all of these rights claims start somewhere decent, which is a request for equality. Now, I entirely agree, by the way. America and Britain are very different countries, and I resent the importing of a specific American racial issue to the British context, for instance. I was brought up in a Britain that was very diverse already, we didn't know about people's skin colours. We didn't notice it. We were brought up to who cared? We were. Of course, there were some people who've had experiences of racism.
It has what we might call a global outreach. Yeah, I can't go to many places where you're not recognised. And it's the thing I find most tricky is when people don't recognise you particularly, but half recognise you. You know, it's that strange thing where they go.
Farage's unapologetic advocacy for British sovereignty and his disdain for what he views as the overreach of globalist institutions have made him a polarising figure. Loved by many for standing up to the political establishment, he's equally reviled by others who see his populist rhetoric as divisive.
How, and I agree with you on that, how is it that within a nanosecond, the death of George Floyd in America becomes huge, organised, and it looks like quite well-funded protests in this country? How did that happen?
Well, it's the same story. Again, in the case of America, there is a specific racial issue which that country has been struggling to address for a long time. You get something like the death of George Floyd, and by the way, I think everyone has to be really careful about this. The cop in question has no defenders, you know? Nobody thinks that arresting cop and the, again, it's never mentioned, but it's like a diverse group of people who he was working with, nobody defends what they did that day. Black Lives Matter as an organisation...
Would you defend it?
What he did?
Yeah.
No. Okay. No, I mean, you know, the arresting officer clearly did it as badly as anyone could. We will, I suppose, find out at his trial whether there was a racial component to it or not. But as my friend Sam Harris pointed out, every year in the United States there are 10 million interactions between the police and the citizenry, the most armed citizenry, as you know, in the world. And so there are difficulties in American policing which we shouldn't underestimate. The idea, though, that you respond to it by saying all of the American police are racist, or all of America is racist, and then much worse, oh, Britain is racist, and then all of Britain's past is racist, and then there's nothing good to be said for a country like this.
How did it explode as quickly?
Because they were primed and ready and waiting to go.
Yeah.
This is a movement that needs martyrs. It seeks martyrdoms. It has given us already false martyrdoms. We had the shooting in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014.
Nonetheless, Farage thrives on controversy. He has consistently voiced opinions that challenge the status quo and has never hesitated to engage in debates on immigration, nationalism, and the future of the UK. His brash and direct style made him a political maverick, unafraid of causing ripples in the system.
They stare a lot, and they just look. You're sort of feeling, I wish that person wouldn't stare at me, so I'd rather just hold up a flag saying, yes, yes, it's me. A few years ago, there was I was in a Land Rover parts department near Peterborough, the kind of place you find me on most.
Yes. This is one of the main things that starts the Black Lives Matter movement. It's claimed that the man who was shot had his hands in the air and said, hands up, don't shoot. This is what Black Lives Matter protesters used to say. At the subsequent trial, it turned out, and even BLM ended up basically admitting it, they didn't admit it, they just dropped it, that the man in question didn't have his hands in the air. He was lunging for the arresting officer's gun when he was shot. And that is the sort of thing that gets you shot in American policing. They were looking for martyrs.
And they were ready and organised in the UK as well.
Yes, and the crucial thing is, we have allowed in Britain, as in America, but in Britain, as we say, with much less cause, we have allowed a movement to be gestating away.
And he came up to me after a while and he said, excuse me, has anyone ever told you that you're the absolute spitting image of that Mr. Bean?
Douglas Murray, on the other hand, is an intellectual powerhouse with a sharp and often caustic critique of the cultural shifts in Western society. As an author, commentator, and speaker, Murray has carved out a space for himself in debates surrounding free speech, identity politics, and Western civilization.
That has in its sights everything in our history. There's two generations in America who have been taught that America is the worst country in the world. They're not taught that it has flaws like all countries. They don't know, by the way, about any other country. I mean, the staggering ignorance of so many people who are the ones, by the way, at the moment, who always say, educate yourself. You know, you need to educate yourself. These are always the most ignorant people you can come across. But the educate yourself brigade know nothing about the world. They've never been anywhere. They can't compare American civilization with any other civilization. They think that America's the only country that ever had slavery. Every civilization in the world had slavery. They think that Britain is to be defined by slavery. They don't even know that this country tore itself apart over the slavery debate centuries ago, and it cost us, and we paid the price.
And 50 years, the Royal Navy, the West Africa Squadron, driving slavery off the high seas.
We paid the price for this because we thought morally it was a price worth paying. And these people now come along and say to an ignorant generation, you don't need to know about that.
So you must never say never, but there does come a point when you feel as though you've done most of what you want to do with him. So.
And because it's not based on language, because it's so physical, Mr. B, presumably it's popular.
But surely not in those circles of the media and business.
Now, in the circles of the media and business, we're dealing with another phenomenon. We're dealing with cowardice. Cowardice. Being called a racist is about the worst thing you can be called in our society. Some people say, well, clearly it's not because you survive after I've called you a racist. No, it isn't. It is about the nastiest thing you can say. It's also, by the way, and I've written about this in the past, one of the fascinating things about it is it's impossible to prove. There is no agreed upon definition, and it is impossible to disprove.
Of course.
Because, of course, we have had in this country for 20 years the idea that it's all in the eye of the beholder. So that if you think it's racist, ergo it is racist. This is an incredibly damaging thing for a society. Now,
he is often at odds with mainstream liberal thinkers, arguing that Western values are under attack from within. His critiques of woke culture, gender ideology, and the radical left have garnered him a strong following. But like Farage, Murray's forthrightness has made him a contentious figure. In a recent and unexpected revelation, Robin McGraw, the wife of famed television personality Dr. Phil, has brought to light some shocking details that have left many stunned. Known for her role as a supportive partner and for her own ventures in the wellness industry, Robin McGraw has generally maintained a private life despite her husband's immense public presence. However, during a candid discussion, she opened up about a deeply personal and previously undisclosed aspect of her life that has now captured widespread attention. This revelation not only sheds light on the challenges she's faced behind the scenes, but also adds a new dimension to the public's understanding of the couple's long-standing marriage.
What's the issue?
Well, Steve, he's got a mistress.
Oh.
And let me just say this one thing about her. She is a real bitch. I brought some proof.
Dr. Phil McGraw, the television personality known for his straightforward advice and no-nonsense approach, has built a brand that resonates with millions. His long-running show, Dr. Phil, has brought countless personal and family issues to light, offering a platform for individuals to seek help and share their stories. But behind the scenes, there's a story that has remained largely untold until now. Robin McGraw, Dr. Phil's wife of many years, has typically maintained a supportive yet quieter role in comparison to her husband's public persona. However, recent events have changed that narrative, bringing Robin to the forefront in a way that few expected. Robin McGraw has always been more than just the woman beside Dr. Phil. She's an author, entrepreneur, and advocate in her own right, with a particular focus on issues of domestic violence and women's health. Over the years, she has cultivated her own following, particularly through her books and her lifestyle brand, which emphasize self-care and empowerment. But while Robin has always projected an image of strength and resilience, recent revelations have shown that her journey has not been without its challenges. The couple's marriage, spanning over 4 decades, has been a subject of public interest ever since Dr. Phil first rose to fame. Their relationship, often highlighted on the show, has been portrayed as one built on mutual respect, love, and understanding. Dr. Phil has frequently credited Robin with being his rock, supporting him through the ups and downs of his career. Yet, as with any long-term relationship, there have been struggles, some of which have only recently come to light.